Hey guys, Spencer Sakurai here again. Today, we are recreating scenes from the movie Her.
Mr. Theodore Twombly, welcome to the world's first artificially intelligent operating system. We'd like to ask you a few questions.
Okay.
Are you social or antisocial?
I guess I haven't been social in a while.
How would you describe your relationship with your mother? Thank you. Please wait as your operating system is initiated.
Hello, I'm here.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Samantha.
So today, I want to talk about why you don't need expensive lights to get the image that you're looking for. And to show that, I'm only going to use one light to light a few shots from the Hollywood movie Her. So in order to do this exercise, I chose very specific equipment, stuff that you probably have or maybe you're looking to buy. We are going to film these shots on the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K, like I have done in my other comparisons. It's such a reasonable camera and it's so powerful, I figured I would use that again for this test. Also, we're going to use the Aputure 120D Mark II. Now I picked this light because of its versatility. It's fairly inexpensive compared to most lights with this power output. It's daylight balance, which is really easy to work with. It has dimming capabilities, it has effects on it. You can do lightning, you can do TV. I really like this light. I've used the first one a lot. I've actually been shooting a documentary for the last year and a half, and I've used the original 120D. I used a set of 3 of those to do all my interviews and all my shots for that entire film. Really excited the 120D Mark II has come out. It's built much better, the connections are better, the wires are better. You only have to have one ballast rather than the 2 units to power it. That's a huge plus for me on this. What is also great about this light is it has a Bones mount on it, so you can put many different modifiers on it, like a softbox or a Fresnel lens, so on and so on. Today, to make it even more simple and to keep it as inexpensive as possible, I'm not using those type of modifiers. I'm just using some 5-in-1 reflectors off of Amazon to modify most of my shots. Now this exercise goes back to kind of the motivation of this channel, which is intentionality. You'll see in a lot of these shots, what makes these shots so good is actually not the lighting. We were able to light with just one light and a couple of bounce boards and whatnot. But then it's about the set dressing and the art direction and the intentionality of what you're trying to convey on screen, what kind of mood you were trying to push to the audience, what kind of image you're trying to create. I think people think that you need a big budget and Hollywood lights to make something look pretty or look professional or whatever, but it's more about how you use it. I think it's been said before, but I really want to hit that nail on the head. I mean, think about most movies. Think about your favorite movies. I mean, other than huge blockbuster movies, a lot of movies take place in real world environments. And all the cinematographer is trying to do is motivate light from practical lights in the room or the sun or whatever. And so with digital cameras these days and how sensitive they are, it's really easy to do that. It's really easy to take a small light and use a practical as motivation to light the scene. There's a lot of other things that go into that, which angle you want to shoot from, how much exposure you want, what kind of mood you want to set. Do you want it to be sunny? Do you want it to be dark? So on and so forth. So when I was thinking about making this video, Her came to mind because a lot of that movie is about its art direction, the feeling you get from the colors and the tonality of the scenes. Also, I feel like most of the cinematography was motivated by these little practical lights in the room. So I thought it would be a good idea to just get one light and try to recreate as many shots as I could from that movie. So full disclaimer, when I say I'm using one light, I am only using one professional light as like my main source of light for each scene, but I am also going to use practicals. If you watch Her, there's like 8 practicals in his loft alone, and some shots have 3 or 4 practical lights in them. Now those are actually probably help light him, but also they add an ambiance to the room. We're gonna do the same thing here today. I went out and bought extra lamps just for this scenario. Now, like I said before, we were shooting on the Pocket 4K. We are using a Metabone speed booster, the 0.71X, the Ultra speed booster, and I am using my vintage Canon lenses. If you look on IMDb, you can see that Hoyt van Hoytema shot this film on the Arri Alexa XT. He used a lot of different vintage glass, one set being the Canon K35s. So I have the 24mm and the 55mm SLR version of this lens. These lenses are really awesome. I've added cine gears to them and EF mount. I've actually taken off the FD mount totally and put on EF mounts so I can use this on any EF camera. So to light this scene, we use the 24mm f1.4. So I tried to match the shot the best I could. I put in the bedside lamp, I have my white sheets on there. I don't have the windows in there, so I just put a mirror in the corner just to kind of add some reflection. So I used the Aputure 120D. I shot it into a 5-in-1 reflector using the white side, which I believe is like an ultra bounce material. I put it on a C-stand, raised it high in the air to try to get the same directionality that they had in the original shot. So as a cinematographer, one of the worst things you can do is shoot in just a room with all white walls. Because the moment you turn on one light, it's gonna bounce all over the place and you'll have zero control of it. That's what happened here. I wish I would have had a softbox or some sort of grid to control the light, but I didn't. So I had to be very strategic about where I place the light and still make it match the original shot. So then on to the close-up. I swung to the 55mm lens, and then I moved that mirror in to try to match the window from the original shot. There was just a couple things that I needed to do from the original light to make it look like the original shot. So first thing was I needed to take away some of the fill on his downside. So I put in just a cheap piece of foam core I got from Walmart, put a black shirt over that to help soak up some of that fill coming from a white wall. I wanted to try to add some life to the mirror to make it look like there was actually bokeh in the background from a city. So that was pretty challenging, but what I did was take the lamp that was originally on the bedside and I propped it up and I put a little ceramic colander over it. It was like bokeh, it was already there. I didn't need to do anything else to force it to look like bokeh. It just kind of showed up that way. I thought that was a neat trick to make this work. Then it was just a matter of moving the key light around a little bit to get better shape on my face. And this is just hitting the point of intentionality. I was trying to make a cityscape. I was trying to have bokeh, and I just tried to solve that problem, and I made it work. Now, it's not perfect, but you get the point. So the next setup I decided to film was the scene where he first awakens or installs the OS on his computer. So to set up this scene, I needed to create a set that looked a lot like the original movie. There was a lot of thought that went into that. The shirt he was wearing, to the tones that they wanted to create. So the woods, the desk is wood, the chair is wood, the background's wood. Now I have a little bit of that in my house, so I was able to just roll around one of my dressers that's made out of wood, put it as a background, and use that as the main tone of the scene. And then it was a matter of figuring out how to light it. So I went, I looked at the original shot and I just couldn't figure out where their key was coming from. It just kind of seemed like it was coming from the monitor or from the practicals themselves, and I just couldn't really believe that. So I put a 5-in-1 reflector up on my dresser and I shot the 120D up into that and let it spill down, but it was spilling everywhere and it still did not look right. The direction was just wrong. And so I kind of pushed it back farther to kind of add more downside, because you can really see in that shot that it's very contrasty. It's just light coming this way, but the light is pretty soft, but it's still contrasty. And then eventually to make it look the same for me, I don't know what they did, if they had a light mat or something right out of frame. I just used the wood as my key. So I took the 120D and I kind of feathered it off the wood and brought it back down until just enough light was punching me, not spilling too much all over the room, but still adding that key light from the 120D. So then I moved on to the close-up. Just like they do in a lot of these shots in this movie, I put the 55mm back on for the close-up, just to get that really shallow depth of field and to make it match the original image the best I could. And then just to give it a little bit more tonality and match the other shot, I put the original software logo on my computer and kept the brightness all the way up to kind of add that redness to my skin tone. So I needed to add a little more contrast. The 120D was kind of bouncing all over the place and it was hitting the back of my head. So I brought in that 5-in-1 reflector again, put the black side towards me, and I cut off the light from hitting the back of my head, and as well adding a nice negative fill to the back of me. So I took away all that fill on the back side of me and added a nice contrast. So we had this light wrapping around my face, and then we have a contrast on the back side of me. And that leads us to the last shot, the opening shot of this video and the opening shot of the film Her. It really looks like they filmed this in like an incredible amount of daylight. I'm sure they had some really big lights to pull this off. Now I took that as a challenge, so I just used the Aputure 120D again. I shot it through the diffusion side of the 5-in-1 reflector from Amazon, and then put that white cardigan just right up to my face here to add enough fill and wrap around to make my whole face even with light. So in order to match the background, I took my red shirt off, I hung it back here, and then found another maroon shirt I had in my closet and put it on this side and got it just in frame just right to kind of match that background. Obviously that was shot on the 55mm again. Now this time I shot it all the way at 1.2. I let everything go soft in my face. I think I pulled it off. The aperture was only at like 55% or something like that, and it still looks really bright. It's just about the intentionality. It's about going into the shot, knowing what you're gonna do, and seeing if you can create it with what you have, and I was able to do that. So let's recap. We used a $1,300 camera. We put vintage lenses on it, which are very cheap off of eBay. We used a pretty inexpensive Aputure 120D, just one light to light all these shots. And we used one 5-in-1 reflector and just some foam core. Now, all in all, we're way cheaper than even just buying a Red or like an Ursa Mini Pro even, just anything like that. We have less money here on this set to make this happen, but we were still able to get pretty close to recreating the same shots from the Hollywood movie Her, a multi-million-dollar movie. Well, I hope you liked this film recreation. I hope you learned something from it. All the gear that I use in this video is in the description below. Gonna do a lot more recreations like this in the future. If you want to see more of that stuff, let me know what you want to see and what you want me to focus on next. If there's a piece of gear that you're curious about and you want me to try to find that and use that to make the recreation, let me know in the comments below. I'll try to get to those as soon as I can, but I'm gonna be traveling a little bit here for some gigs. I have to shoot some stuff for a documentary up in Toronto next week, and then I'll be in San Francisco, but then I'll be back later after that. So the next video might be delayed a little bit, but I'll do my best to make one. So until next time, guys, cheers.